outline. Essentially what I want is if you can just think through some of the challenges when it comes to persuasion, when it comes to helping a client see a better path and making a decision. Ultimately, I believe that we are in the business of people, and part of that comes into understanding the psychology of what causes people to make a decision or causes them to not make a decision. Do you have a clicker, Dean? Okay. So what I want to have a conversation around is this simple idea. What is the biggest thing holding people back from making a decision today? What are some of the real realities of our current market? Interest rates, fear, uncertainty. Uncertainty of what? When was the last time that uncertainty was not a part of reality? Never, right? Uncertainty is the only thing that is constant in our world. And yet the uncertain items do change and fluctuate, right? So really it comes down to how are we actually framing the conversations that we're having with clients. And it's about this perspective that this is what we all start with. Now, I'm not going to tell you what this is, but knowing the industry that we're in, I want to see who can guess what this line represents. What industry are you in? Real estate? What is real estate built on? Relationships, and more literally, what goes on the land? What goes before the house can be built? Foundation. Now, I'm going to give a different word for the true, my perspective, what I believe our foundation is that we need to build on, which is trust, right? And so the one thing that I'll tell you is that in order to increase the income, we have to first start with the foundation of increasing the trust clients have in us, our ability to help them navigate the uncertainty. What comes next after the foundation? Framing, right? Now, have you ever walked into some of those homes that they just seem like they're a DIY project? Like, did a builder build this home, or did a client get their family together and say, let's put some sticks and glue together and make a home, right? And so this is really what the conversation is about today, is that first you've got to build trust. That's a long-term play. But then when you have the opportunity of somebody who's thinking about buying, selling, or investing in the next 12 months, it actually starts with the framing. How are you framing the conversation and the perspective that they have about our current market environment and the solutions that will help them move forward effectively, right? So that's what this conversation today is going to be about, is specifically this portion, is how do we frame conversations. And if you think about with an actual home, if you're doing a home inspection, okay, what are the big ticket items that you already anticipate if there's a problem wrong with that, it's going to be a challenging conversation you're going to have with either the buyer or the seller or both, right? For like example, foundation. If there's a foundation crack, it's going to be a pretty big deal, right? What else? The roof, electrical, radon, just had one of those. Meth, had one of those recently too. The main support beam cut in half. another DIY project. Plumbing issues, right? So the thing is, all of you already can anticipate the high pressure items in that home, right? And we actually have to do the exact same thing when it comes to just the entire buyer journey or seller's journey, is think through what are the high stakes moments that we should actually frame things in advance to help lessen the blow of those situations, right? Or those scenarios. And so part of this is starting with just understanding the power of your conversations. So how you say things matter. How you say things and frame things has a big impact on perception. I'll give you an actual example. How many of you in this room, I know a few of you, have done door-to-door sales? How many of you have knocked doors for open houses or something else like that? Okay. So I did this for 7 years, and one of the products that we sold, my first started with security. The second product, though, was direct TV services. Any of you have TV anymore? Just streamers in here? Okay. So one of the things that we would do is, in order for us to actually offer a solution to the client that we are knocking on their door, complete cold contact, is we would have to see what kind of receiver or equipment they already have in the home. Now, if you just knock on somebody's door, how confident are you going to feel saying, "Can I come in your house?" Right? When you just met the person. And this would be one of the hesitation points that a lot of door-to-door sales individuals would have, is actually asking, "Can I come in and see what equipment you have?" Right? Because what's their belief system? What's their thoughts? What's that? Nobody's going to let me in, right? Because I don't feel like I have enough trust, or they might think it's weird if I ask that. They don't know who I am. And so one of the strategies that we would teach is that it really is not about what you say, it is how you say it. So this is ultimately one thing that I'd love for you to really latch onto today, is that it's not about what you say, it's how you say it. This is the approach that I would teach all of our door-to-door reps, and they typically would get in the home within about 15 to 20 seconds of the person answering the door. And to demonstrate this, I would have people shadow me. So I'd have one person follow me around from door to door and just show them. And I wanted to prove the point. So I always use this exact same example when I was teaching them. I wouldn't do this on a normal when I was just out there selling. But the different receivers that they had some specific names for them. They're like, they usually ended in letters, like an A424Z or something like that. And so that's the real actual words that we would use. But in these demonstrations, when I was showing agents or showing these door-to-door reps that it's the confidence level that you have is the most important key, is I would change it to the Quizno receiver and the Subway receiver. So I'd say, hey, for us to be able to understand if we can effectively help you, we have to know if you have the Quizno or the Subway receiver. Which one do you guys have on your TV? What do you think they would say? I don't know. Great. Well, show me where that's at, and I'll go ahead and see what we can do for you. And I just start walking forward like 1,000 people have let me in their home. Like it's just natural and normal, right? The reason why I want to say this is because I'm going to show you some exact phrasing and things that you can say. What's more important, though, is the confidence level of how you say it, okay? So it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Two people can say the exact same thing and get different results, okay? So what your clients really want right now, because you guys already hit the nail on the head, is they want something certain helping them navigate through their decision making. So if the market is not going to be certain, who's going to be the certain piece of the equation? You have to be, right? So that actually is what gives clients the confidence to make a transition. So let's talk through some of these things. One thing from Alex Hormozi, he says, people buy your services because they feel that they will be better off as a result. So when you are presenting your services and there's probably 6 or 7 other agents that they know in their network, right? How do you portray that they are going to be better off because you're the one that served them compared to anybody else, right? So framing. Framing is how you position a message or experience so it lands with clarity, relevance, and emotional pull. And there's times where you will actually use specific questions that you ask a client or specific statements to kind of tee up a scenario for them. And what will happen is you actually are going to always be framing. Okay, you are always framing a conversation. For example, if you take a listing appointment and you're going to be showing up on Thursday this week, it would actually be wise for you to send an email in advance. And obviously, you're going to ask some questions on the phone call. What's important to them? Why are they thinking about making a move at this time? What you're going to be able to do though is tee up an email. For example, I had a client who they wanted a very specific amount for their home, because that's one of the questions I ask is, well, what are you guys hoping to get for the home when you do sell it? They gave me a number. When I did the comps after that call, it was nowhere close to what they're wanting, right? So now two things is that I could just say, I'm going to wait till I show up and I'm going to just drop it on them there and tell them that they're not going to get this home value. Or I can frame the conversation in advance and just say, I'm not going to tell them a price for their home, but I'm going to send them a few examples of homes that have sold in advance so they have time to actually look through those comparables and just say, here's the homes that are actually frame the conversation that we're going to have on Thursday. So please take a look at these. This is what's sold in your area, and this can help us have a productive conversation, right? So because I framed it, now, before I even show up, are they now renegotiating in their mind of what their home might be worth? Does that now help me better have that conversation with them real time? Yeah, right? Rather than trying to have it on the spot, which they're in a different emotional state. It's not the best time to start that conversation. It's better to do it in advance. So you can frame even before you have appointments, right? So the benefits for framing is agents who master framing uncover the real why behind every client's move. This is going to be the key piece, is that every client who's buying or selling in this market has a reason. How well do we do at identifying what that true reason or pain point is? And then we want to decrease the objections before they arise. So again, we want to start thinking about those pivotal moments throughout the transaction and say, how can I pre-program some conversation pieces that allow me to actually soften that objection or remove it altogether, okay, before it arises. And then build confidence in the process. I want them to feel confident moving forward, either with the purchase or with the sell, and then earn more signed clients by a smoother process. So here's the kind of framework that we're going to go through today, which is we're going to talk about the 3 pillars, core conversation frameworks. We're going to go through exactly what to say, so some actual applications that you guys can use. And then the ultimate result is, how do you have conversations that convert? How do you actually get clients to the finish line? Do any of you, maybe I'm talking to a dead audience here, do any of you have clients ever that are on the fence or don't choose to use you? Okay. So this conversation is about how do we help more clients in our funnel. Here's the thing. Most people think that they have a lead generation problem, when in reality they have a lead conversion problem. How do you actually just convert more of the people that are in your database or in your pipeline, right? And it's about the conversations we have around them. So here are some initial go-to phrases. Let me go back. So the first one is pillar number 1. Is you want to guide with precision. So you want to ask the right questions at the right time. Now, this depends on, how you're actually engaging initially with these clients, but oftentimes if you're having a pre-buyer consultation call or a pre-listing phone call, that's where you want to do some of this initial conversation pieces. You're not going to ask a ton of questions on those calls. They're meant to be light, but it will actually help you better frame the entire conversation you're going to have in the listing presentation or your buyer consultation, okay? So ask the right questions. And it's not about this idea of top agents don't talk more. What they do is they ask better. They ask better questions. Phil Jones, he says that the person asking the questions controls the conversation. This is so important, where notice that I'm using this language purposefully. It's a listing consultation and a buyer consultation. What do we naturally call it in our industry? Appointment or presentation, right? Presentation means I'm showing up to present. What's the difference between presentation and a consultation? Interactive, collaborative. Yeah, tailor-made. Mm-hmm. And think of, like, if you go into a doctor's office and their mindset is, I'm just here to present, and they just say, here's some good drugs that I can give you, right? Here's some good prescriptions I can write for you. How effective do you think that model would be? Versus what's going on? What's the issue? What's the pain point? How long has this been around for? Right? They go through a consultative approach to find out what the best remedy is. So we also need to practice with that same intention of asking the right questions to find out what the pain points are, how long this has persisted, and what the potential solutions are before we recommend the prescription, right? So the consultations are really question heavy. And until you clearly understand what their focus is and how you can help them. Direction. Help clients discover their next steps. And this is where really rubber meets the road. This is where we have to get clear about presenting to them solutions. Like if we've just talked about what the common things are that are holding people back, the two big ones that I heard is interest rates, right, which is affordability, and then uncertainty, which is the kind of two components that are always going to be a combination of our market, right? So are we saying, well, here's how we can make this work, or here are 3 different options that fit your specific goals, right? And discovery, uncover motivation and clarify what the uncertainty is for them. So here's some go-to phrases that build momentum. These are just like simple staple uses where you can inject them in very a wide range of options. So like just out of curiosity. So just out of curiosity, what's something you guys absolutely can't live without in your next place? What is this question uncovering for me? Needs and high-level wants, right? What this does on the back end is reduces time because I know I need to search for homes that have those specific features or things that they've talked about, right? So the better I do at asking these questions up front, the more time it saves me on the back end as well. Just out of curiosity, what's the biggest reason behind your guys' move right now? What's causing you to want to make a shift? Okay. Another go-to phrase is, would it be helpful? Would it be helpful if? And you can add any question on back to that. One more time. Yeah, this is can I get my dancers on stage, please? Devin, come on stage. Would it be helpful if I shared what similar homes are going for in this area? Or if they're, let's use this real time. If their issue is affordability, they've been on the fence about buying for the last couple of years because interest rates are high. What's a phrase you can use with that? Would it be helpful if to start that conversation around affordability? Would it be helpful if you just rented for the rest of your life? What about this? Would it be helpful if I showed you 3 different options to actually help you lower the cost of your monthly payment on your new home? Now, on the back end, right, we can show them new builds options where they're offering 4.99% interest rates with buy down incentives. We can show them we can show them a solution of a 2-1 buy down and say, hey, I know how to negotiate this. We can find a seller that's willing to give us a 2-1 buy down, which helps you guys XYZ, right? So starting the conversation of would it be helpful if I showed you guys a few different options of how I've helped clients in your exact situation get a lower interest rate. If that's their biggest concern, if that's what's been holding them back, let's solve that question, and you can just open the conversation with, would it be helpful if? This is actually a good one as well. Every seller is also, well, I shouldn't say every, but 90% of them are what? A seller's going to sell a home and they're going to go buy a new home. So they're not just thinking like a seller, they're also thinking like a buyer. So most of them are saying, well, if I sell this, how many of you have a 3% interest rate on a home you bought in 2020? Or 2.5% or 3.5 or 3.75, right? So if any of you decided to sell today, what's the first thing going through your mind? I'm giving up this interest rate and I've got to go to double what I probably have right now, right? So if you as the agent already know that's their psychology, that's what they're thinking about, should you not frame that conversation and have that conversation on your terms, right? So this question is, would it be helpful if we walked through how your current home sale could impact your next purchase? In other terms, I can actually show you a few different ways where even though it's going to be slightly higher interest rate, we can actually make it fairly similar to what you guys are currently paying right now, right? And that's where, in my mind, I'm thinking of 2-1 buy down and using their current equity buildup that they've had, rolling that into the next property, right? Is it going to be identical home payment? Probably not, right? But you also have to help them navigate the new reality. Are interest rates going back to 2.5? Probably not, right? Why this? Why now? So two different types of questions that are helpful to ask is motivation questions and then also emotional connection. So you have to kind of understand the personality of the client that you're connecting with to determine what questions are going to be best for them. Like I'll just share with me, I'm not emotional questions in a sales context do not really work with me. Like if a sales individual is asking me emotional based questions, I can already see it. And I just like, I'll give them a really short answer, right? But there's certain personality types where they actually, you have to get them into their emotions for them to make a decision, okay? So just be contextually aware that with different personality types, you're going to use the different questions. So motivation questions, has anything changed recently that's influencing your move? This would be good for an analytical type, right? What are some of the reasons why people move in today's market? Jobs, divorce, family dynamics change, having another kid, kids just moved out, now we're empty nesters, right? There's a bunch of different reasons. And it's important to understand what those are. And so that's where the motivation is. What's motivating them to make a decision right now, okay? Is there something about your current home you'll miss or something you're ready to leave behind? What's nice about if you know what they're willing and ready to leave behind, what they're telling you is what they don't like about their current home. How can you use that strategically later on? Showing them a home to buy, right? Not only showing them a better option, but also using it as an anchor. If they say, you know, we're thinking about it, we don't know if these higher interest rates make sense. You say, hey, I totally get it. Like one, we have some solutions for that. But I also remember that you guys told me that you guys need an extra bedroom because you're having a kid and XYZ. So I just want to understand, which one do you feel like is more important to you at this point? Is it one, and this is where you're going to ask a question that is both in your favor. Now, here's the thing. Everything I'm sharing today has to be within the context of ethical persuasion, right? We have to understand, are we truly putting the client in the best place possible? And then just knowing that behind the scenes, everybody has a tough time making a decision, especially when making a move when it comes to real estate is usually one of the bigger decisions they're going to make in their life, right? So I am okay with guiding a client down a thinking process, okay? So with this, using that question, you are identifying not only what's motivating them that you can anchor them back to, you can also use these emotional connection questions. So what's the one thing that would make a house feel like a home to you? So again, for the right client, it's important for them to express the components of the right home, right? And for you to be able to document that. If you could change one thing about your living situation, what would it be? It's another great emotional question. Fact finding meets feeling finding. So instead of asking how many bedrooms are you thinking, right, which is like a very easy way to pose the question, we can say, how would it feel finally to have a space just for the kids? So just being contextually aware and adapting the question, because what it does is gets them to think emotionally of the new state they're going to be in with a home with more room, right? Which is where you want them to think from. Do you need a home office? Versus, let's say you're walking through a home that has a home office and you say, what would change for your guys' work-life balance if you had a dedicated office space like this? So you're getting them to think about the reality of living in that new environment, okay? Objections. How many of you have heard of those? How many of you get those? Okay. This is a way to reframe the questions. One is about identifying the path forward. So what would need to be true for you to feel good about moving forward with this purchase? There's been situations in the past where I've had a client on the fence, we go under contract, and then they start questioning it, right? They get cold feet. And so one thing that you want to do is actually uncover what the real potential hesitation or fear is that they're running into. So that's what that initial question helps with. Uncover hidden concerns. What concerns are still in your mind that we haven't addressed yet? So this piece, don't guess, just ask, actually ties into this, is don't just try to guess what their concern is, just ask them. So what's the concern still on your mind that we haven't addressed yet? Here's just a few different questions you can put in your piggy bank for buyers. Motivation, what's the story behind your move? Readiness, if we found something tomorrow that checks the boxes, would you guys be open to acting on it? So finding, are they ready to make that move? What are you hoping for in this, what are you hoping this next chapter looks like? And this, what that is, that's a very open-ended question. The purpose of it is to find out are you guys okay if I give you an advanced strategy? Don't get overwhelmed with this. So a lot of these questions, I use Otter AI, as I've talked about, right, to record my client listing consultations and buyer consultations. What I'll do, because I will be completely honest, I'm not the best at telling I know exactly what Devin's personality style is. So when we talk about personality types, is anybody taking the DISC assessment? So by nature, like I'm good at reading people and just kind of naturally going with the flow, but I actually can't tell you this is a high D, this is a high S from what they're saying. Now, Otter AI can, when you record the conversation, you export that and put it into ChatGPT and you say, based on this client's transcript, I want you to tell me what this client's personality style is. Now, what you can do from there is say, well, create an email recap based on this client's personality type. And it will actually create an email perfectly fit for them. Okay. What you can do is save that chat, that conversation, and always go back to it for that client. So you say, hey, now they're having concerns about the home inspection report that came back. What type of email do I need to craft to help them feel comfortable with moving forward? And it's basing it off of their psychological profile, right? So some of these questions, the way that I'm asking that, what are you hoping this next chapter looks like? It's so broad and open-ended where it allows them some range or some free roam. Okay. Which helps, again, that ChatGPT style of being able to identify what their personality style is. Does that make sense? So hopefully that wasn't too complex, but simple strategy. It actually speeds up a lot of the processes. I literally actually had this with a client recently, and I wrote an email, and then I was like, I should go put this through that specific conversation for ChatGPT. I went back to that client's profile and said, here's the email I'm thinking about sending. And it's like, hey, red flags, this is going to rub the client the wrong way because this is their personality style. So let's adapt this. And it just gave me another version and said, send this one instead. Way better. And I got a way better response from the client. I'm like, ooh, I'm glad I didn't send that first email that I thought was good, because that was really tailoring to my personality style, to be honest, not theirs. So just a little advanced tip on using ChatGPT and Otter in these situations. Pillar number 2. You guys ready to go fast? I've hung on this first section a little bit long. So collaborate, don't convince, build trust, create partnerships, and offer support. What you really want to focus on is you want your clients to perceive you as a partner throughout this process. Not that you're selling them something. You shouldn't have anything to sell. You should be a guide through what they're already going to buy or sell, right? So what that means is you want to first focus on making the uncertainty feel normal. Funny thing that you guys pointed out, uncertainty is a big challenge, right? You have to normalize it, because there's literally no scenarios in life where there is no uncertainty, It's built into the ecosystem. So one, for example, the way that you can help do this, on the timing side. So there's rarely a perfect time to buy or sell, but there is a smart time based on your goals. So what you're framing is that there is never a perfect time. But depending on what their goals are, there is a smart time, which the smart time is probably now, if they're even thinking about it, right? Question normalization. So it's okay. So even just pointing out like, hey, it's okay to have questions. That's why I'm here. So if you guys ever have some random questions that pop up, just shoot me a text, give me a call, and happy to help you navigate that. Okay. I don't want them going to their dad or their uncle or their cousin and asking the question. So what kind of answer are they going to get? Some really bad guidance, right? Hey, what do you think about this roof situation? Right? I want them to come to me. So I want to normalize up front that it's okay for them to come to me with questions. And then focus on goals. So it's not about trying to time the market. It's about understanding what matters most to you and knowing that we'll find the best solution possible. So this is again saying like, hey, we don't know what's going to happen with interest rates in the next 6 months. What I can tell you is that I have 3 different solutions that can help you make the right move right now. So let's go through those 3 different solutions. Right? So what you want to do is help them focus on the goal. What's the end goal that they're trying to accomplish? And that you have a clear path to the best solution possible. This is important too, is just to repeat or recap what they say. So a big part of not only further building trust, but building a more solid framework is by validating whatever the client is saying on a consistent basis. So confirm understanding. So what I'm hearing is you'd like to be under contract before August. Is that right? So you're just reiterating what they've already stated. And what you're doing is actually also helping them take baby steps towards that reality. Okay. Validate priorities. So it sounds like space and location are non-negotiables. Am I understanding that correctly? Build confidence. The best closers confirm, they don't convince. So we're just literally validating clients throughout this process and then providing solutions when it's needed. We'll send these slides out so you have these. I'm going to jump into the last one. Create clarity and confidence. So framing matters most in these different scenarios. These are just a few. We've talked about some other ones as far as home inspection goes, but at the offer table. So what I say for this piece is when you're in the listing consultation or the buyer consultation, again, the framing matters. And so how you're framing the value and the services that you're providing to them is very important, right? When reviewing pricing, so obviously when it comes down to showing them comparables and showing them what their home value is worth to here, does anybody remember, Novely, do you remember what Cody Gibson recently said about listings? Was it you that sent me that text message? Yeah, you have. Something around the idea of like this market right now is about how you strategically price homes. Like that is the number one skill set to focus on because more listings are sitting for longer. I don't know if any of you've ran into that problem. And so the skill set is strategically pricing, right, up front. And so when it comes to reviewing pricing, you want to have conversation frameworks around that. During market uncertainty and then at every fork in the road are the other two. Yes. List to last.
It's a follow-up to his previous course that we did last year when the lawsuit came out and was settled. I can't remember the name of that. What was that course? The all-day one that Gary did. Oh, yeah. Value squared. Value squared. So this is a follow-up to that, but it's all about listings because Gary's like, so many agents haven't been through a market like this and they're unprepared. And so he's going to spend all day just teaching us how to do that. And that's July 16th. So I want everybody to be prepared for that class.
Awesome. And then this is the last one we'll wrap up on for sake of time, is that just you want to always frame the next steps with confidence. This is like, honestly, if you're to take nothing more from this class, it's just be very explicit on what happens next at every phase. How many of you have made any type of online digital purchase? Clothes or digital resource, right? Everybody, right? How would you feel if you make a purchase, you hit buy, and then no follow-up email comes? You get no confirmation, you get no resource, your product, if you bought an actual physical product, doesn't show up to the home. What emotions would you feel? Frustrated, uncertain, right? Fear, angry, lack of trust, right? So what you want to realize is that at every phase, clients are looking to you to know the answers of like what happens next. Even if they've bought a couple homes in the past with you, you have to understand they need clarity on how to move forward successfully. So this is really the key line. These are just some examples of where it might show up. So the next best step would be this, or here's what happens next. Even in an email recap of this is what has happened with your home so far. We have listed on the market. It's been on for this many days. We have 20,000 views. And here's what happens next with our marketing plan. So they know that behind the scenes you're working, right? Because that's the question that they're probably asking. But the next best step would be for us to schedule a pricing strategy session, really get clear about what your home's worth, but also an effective plan to helping you sell it. Or the next best steps would be getting pre-approved so we're ready when the right home shows up. Or the next best steps would be, this is a really important one, looking at your options on the purchase side so we have an effective game plan when we sell your current home. Because again, you already know, you're anticipating, the question they have is, well, what happens if I sell this home and we've got to go buy a new home, right? How do the numbers work? So why not just answer that question and say, well, let's actually get that squared away first so that you guys can feel confident with us selling your home right now, right? Okay. Any thoughts or questions on this? I know there's a lot. What I want you to do is just be aware of your conversations over the next couple of weeks that you're having with clients and just say, how might I better frame this in the future? Right? Some of the framings in advance so that it reduces the blow in the actual conversation. Some of the framing is just how you handle and navigate their objections or their concerns in the moment. And so just a good thing is even have Otter record yourself, right? And say, how can I better frame this conversation in the future? If I lose a deal, I want to know why. I want to analyze that and figure out how could I have better framed it to where I could have earned this client's business, right? Katie and then Andrew.
They're selling their home. They have to like relocate because their job is moving. That's why they're moving. But then they're telling me like they don't want to start looking yet because they don't know what exactly they're going to get for their house. Is there any kind of guidance? How do you push them to just still start the looking process? Or do you not think it's necessary?
So are they moving out of state or are they staying?
No, just in Logan.
Okay. So they're still moving within
Still
state.
local, yeah.
Do you have a thought on that?
They're online every day. They're online every day, but you're wondering if you're going to get to.
I know I'm not perfect yet, like they're not on the hot seat or something.
Yeah. So part of it is that you're anticipating. You already know behind the scenes they are looking, right? And part of it is, again, like if you think of think about the end goal. End goal is going to be maximize proceeds on their current home, right? Sell as much as possible, but also get a good deal or rate on their new home, right? So that's what I would lead with, is what I know they probably want, and tee up the conversation that way of like, hey, totally get it. And I don't know the exact phrasing that they might have given you, but like I would frame it as an email most likely, is I would tee up an email and say, hey, I know that you guys are going to be searching for homes. So what I would like to do is just proactively give you guys some good tools and resources to help with that process. So that way you can get the best deal possible on that home. And actually it might be wise for us to jump on Zoom for 20 minutes or meet up in person. And for me to just go out the layout of the land of what's happening in that specific market or that location and just make sure that you guys have some good next steps. Does that help? So that's what I would do. Is I would probably do it in an email and give them some really good value and just say, for example, right, interest rates, there's some different strategies that we can deploy. I wouldn't give them the strategies. There's different strategies we can deploy to get you guys a better interest rate on the new purchase, which I know is going to be important. So if you're open to it, we can jump on Zoom and I can go through those details. That's probably how I would tee it up, something like that. Yeah. Andrew?
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you order like your phone calls? If so, how do you do that when Otter's on your phone? Like, can it record at the same time that you're talking? I don't know.
I do record most of the phone calls. Just depends on the setting and situation, but you have to open up on your computer and turn Otter on your computer and then put it on speaker on your phone. Unfortunately, because you can't record it that way on your phone. Yeah. Good question. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So hang out. We're going to turn on some music for Devin and a few of you to come up and dance, and then lunch will be here soon. Okay. I guess I'm happy to answer any other questions if there are any. If anybody's sticking around for lunch. Did this conversation make sense? Okay. So start with trust. It's a long-term game. It's delivering value over time. And then start saying, well, how do I frame the questions to be building on a solid foundation, right? How do I frame those conversations effectively for clients? Cool. Okay. Have a great week. Thank you.